All right, looks like we're up. No function on the clicker yet. All right, looks like we're all good. Well, I hope everybody's having a great day today. Glad you all came out.
Spero che tutti vi state divertendo oggi, avete una bella giornata.
So what we're going to talk today about, and try to keep things light, but also try to give you something super useful, something you could put into use right away.
Proverò a non essere troppo tecnico e vi darò delle informazioni che potrete usare subito.
And then at the end, we'll have some time for some questions, and honestly, shout them out. They could be simple, they could be complex. It's all good.
E alla fine aspetterò delle domande che possono essere sia difficili che facili, non è un problema.
So my name is Athur Greyson. I'm the CEO of a company called Ujamaa Digital, and what we work on is basically blockchain analytics.
Il mio nome è Athur Greyson, sono il CEO di Ujamaa e lavoriamo con blockchain analytics, ci occupiamo di blockchain analytics.
One of the great use cases that Ujamaa has started with is an NFT marketplace, and we can draw a lot of insights from this marketplace.
Un use case con cui abbiamo iniziato sono gli NFT del marketplace, marketplace degli NFT da cui possiamo imparare tantissimo.
That's all good. And what we noticed in working on this project was that there was a lot of confusion around token types.
Mentre stavamo lavorando a questo progetto abbiamo capito che c'è tantissima confusione riguardante gli token.
So today what we're going to do is we're going to distinguish those in a way that makes it really simple, like super simple.
Oggi proveremo di distinguerli, vi li spiegherò in un modo che li capite.
And then make it directly applicable for people who create content in this space. So today we're going to talk about creator use cases for semi-fungible tokens.
Molto importante anche per i creatori, perciò oggi parleremo di case study e creatori.
Okay, so creators of all types have use cases for data right management.
Creatori, can you go again, sorry?
Yeah, so creators of all types basically have a need for data management.
Ok, i creatori hanno bisogno di data management.
And essentially data management is the business side behind the content that you create.
Il data management è il business nel background del tuo lavoro. Cioè.
Right, so I mean this covers everything from painters, graphic designers, game developers, YouTubers, app builders, and also comic artists.
Si può applicare per pittori, artisti grafici, sviluppatori di giochi, YouTuber, sviluppatori di app o artisti comici.
Now, a lot of people are familiar with these titles, right? And these kinds of content creators. And a lot of people are familiar with NFTs as well.
Tanta gente è familiare con questa tipologia di creatori, anche con gli NFT.
But what I think is lost is the connection between the two and how you can use the technology of NFTs, particularly for data management and therefore monetization by these types of creators.
Credo però che si è persa la connessione tramite queste due cose e come puoi usarli per monetizzare.
So each of these creators creates these types of assets.
Ogni tipo di questi creatori creano questo tipo di asset.
We've got painters that create physical artworks, graphic artists that create virtual art, game developers that do GameFi unlockables, YouTubers that create streams, app builders that create downloadable content, and then comic artists who create comics.
You lost me. I pittori che creano arte fisica, gli artisti grafici che creano arte virtuale, gli sviluppatori di giochi che creano non so come si traduce, scusatemi, GameFi unlockables, YouTuber che creano stream, sviluppatori di app che creano content che si può scaricare e artisti comici che creano comics.
Yeah, and if you're unfamiliar with any of these terms, feel free to shout them out at the end. We can definitely talk about them. GameFi, downloadable content, graphic artists, they may be new terms, but we can definitely talk about them after.
Ok, se siete familiari con questa tipologia di contenuto, possiamo parlare anche alla fine che vi può rispondere alle domande.
So, monetization is what connects all of these creators. They're all looking for ways to monetize their content, and that's what we're going to talk about in terms of semi-fungible tokens as a use case for that.
Monetizzare è la cosa che collega tutte queste tipologie di creatori di contenuto. I stopped up.
Second.
Can you go again?
So monetization is what connects all these creators, and so the semi-fungible token is what we're going to look at as a use case for
E ne
this
parleremo
monetization.
dei token non fungibili come use case per monetizzare questa tipologia di content.
Okay, so in general, monetization in the traditional Web 2 space takes this kind of structure.
In generale la monetizzazione in questa industria ha una struttura del genere.
So we've got, what, you create an idea, you build that idea,
Crei
and then you
un'idea.
find a way to monetize that idea.
Crei un'idea, la costruisci, ti viene un'idea, la costruisci, poi devi trovare un modo per monetizzarla.
Right? Something takes hold, you're like, I gotta do this thing, I work on this thing, and then I try to sell this thing.
C'è qualcosa che ti dice che devo mi piace questo, devo crearlo, ma devo anche venderlo.
But what you often find is that each phase has knowledge blocks, gatekeepers, and a lack of payment rails.
Ok, però, sorry, can you go again, please?
Yeah, but what you find in each one of these phases is that you're stuck with knowledge blocks, gatekeepers, and a lack of payment rails.
Ok, quello che ti blocca cercare di monetizzare in questa industria sono hai blocchi sul knowledge, gatekeepers, mancamento di
Payment
pagamento.
rails would be like the way in which you're able to bring money onto your system of like content.
Il modo in cui tu potresti portare soldi, cioè monetizzare il tuo content, potresti portare soldi dentro.
But what we all know, and a lot of the reason we're all here, is because decentralized applications have solved a lot of those problems.
Tutti però quelli che siamo qua abbiamo capito che applicazioni decentralizzate potrebbero risolvere questa tipologia di problemi.
And that's great. That's brought us to an excellent point in terms of the development of this technology.
E questo ci ha portato in un punto molto fantastico nello sviluppo di questa tecnologia.
But tokens in particularly are the kinds of programmable currencies, also digital assets, that are the driving instruments that make this all possible. So that's why we're going to focus on tokens.
Ci concentreremo sui tokens perché ci sono can you go again? Sorry.
Yeah, so tokens, because of their programmable nature as a currency and the ability to represent digital assets, wind up driving the utility of these applications.
Ok, so i token, grazie al modo in cui sono programmati, potrebbero non guidare.
Basically, tokens make it possible, right?
I
So
token
why are they so important?
Tramite i token questo si può fare.
Right, so let's talk about those, right? And these are very simple concepts, right? We've got three kinds of tokens on the market.
Parliamo su questo, è un concetto molto simple, ci sono tre tipi di token sul mercato.
So, three types of tokens, an ERC20, an ERC721,
ERC20, ERC721
and an 1155.
e 1155.
Now, we're probably all really familiar with the ERC20. You may not have recognized it like that before, but it's all based in code.
Forse siete tutti familiari con ERC20, magari non lo riconoscete guardandolo così, però è tutto nel codice.
Now, raise your hand if you've ever heard of DAI as a token, DAI.
Alzate la mano chi ha sentito di
Okay, all right. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of stablecoin.
Alzate la mano chi ha sentito di stablecoin.
All right. Now, these are examples of tokens, right? ERC20s, currencies that are based on a blockchain.
Questi sono esempi di token ERC20, valute che sono basate su blockchain.
Super simple,
Criptovalute.
right?
Molto
Now,
semplice.
721s, also based in code, a little longer in terms of like how many lines of code, so it's a little more complex.
721, anche esso basato nel codice un po' più lungo.
Any Bored Ape owners in this room?
Bored apes, qualcuno che ha bored ape in questa camera?
Okay, yeah, a Bored Ape is like a good example of a 721, right? This is a non-fungible token that represents a unique asset.
Un NFT di Bored Apes è un esempio molto chiaro di 721, è un è un NFT che rappresenta un asset unico.
So what makes a Bored Ape different than something like a stable coin,
Che cosa,
right?
che cosa fa un Bored Ape differente? Che cosa la rende differente riguardo a un stablecoin?
In general, the difference is that Bored Apes are unique, right? One can't be exchanged for another. They're not swappable.
In generale non sono scambiabili. Un Bored Ape è unico, non si può scambiare per un altro.
Whereas like one token to the next of a stablecoin or a DAI or any other favorite token, they're indistinguishable, fungible.
Mentre gli altri token sono... no, sorry, go again.
Yeah, so Bored Apes and
no,
721s,
okay,
they're unique, right? Tokens are fungible.
Yes. I token sono fungibili, i NFT sono infungibili, 721 sono non fungibili.
So we see that there's an improvement from the ERC20 to the
C'è un
721.
miglioramento da ERC20 a 721.
So now we're going to get into basically the improvement from something like a Bored Ape to an 1155.
Adesso vediamo che cosa porta di più un 755 rispetto a un Bored Ape.
Now, this is a lot here, but if you've never heard it explained this way, snap a picture and just like read it later. Really what this means, this is a lot. Snap a picture, but we're gonna break it down.
Potete fare una foto così la studiate un po' più tardi.
Yeah, so if you take something like a Bored Ape and you allow it to basically do new things, like create other tokens spontaneously or interact with it, that's when you get into what an 1155
Se
can
prendi
do.
qualcosa come un Bored Ape e gli aggiungi la possibilità di creare altri token, raggiungi il 755.
We're talking about a kind of asset that has the ability to literally manage and create tokens itself.
Parliamo di un asset che ha la capabilità di management e di creare altri token da sola.
So, and I think this is something that might seem simple to some people in the room that are very technical, that have
Credo
some
che
background.
per i tecnici sarà una cosa molto semplice da capire,
But it doesn't get enough, I think, attention in terms of the creator economy.
ma l'economia dei creators non gli dà tantissima attenzione.
So, in general, if you were to look across this table here, we could see that based on the token type, what kind of benefits they offer.
In generale, se guardate questa tabella qua, potete vedere che tipo di benefici offre ogni tipo di token.
And across them all, everything from programmability, the fact that it operates as a currency, the fact that it can operate as virtual property,
Tutto da programmabilità, il fatto che può operare come un currency, come una criptovaluta,
that it still retains the properties of fungibility and non-fungibility,
la fungibilità o non fungibilità della proprietà,
and then also has the benefit of being mutable, meaning that you can actually make changes to it over time while maintaining its integrity.
e puoi anche portare cambiamenti nel tempo mentre li mantieni l'integrità.
So if you're a content creator out there looking to monetize your channel, looking to monetize your comics, looking to monetize a mural, this is the kind of asset that I think, if you haven't heard of it, could offer a lot of value over time as opposed to once.
Se sei un creatore di contenuto che cerca di monetizzare il suo content, il canale, tutto quello che produci come content, credo che questo è il tipo di token a cui dovresti guardare.
So what you'll notice is that there are a lot of marketplaces, now that you know about this, you'll go and you'll look and say, okay, well, which kind of tokens is this marketplace using? A lot of them are, for the most part, using 721s. These are basically just NFTs.
Cut it in half, sorry.
So if you look out into the market, you'll see that a lot of marketplaces are just using 721 types.
Se guardate nel mercato vedrete che la maggior parte dei marketplace usano questa tipologia di 721.
But ERC 1155s are much more resilient.
Ma ERC 1155 sono molto più resilienti.
This idea of resiliency means that it can be used even when your content, even when your application,
L'idea di
even when
resilienza può essere usata anche quando crei content.
the things you need to use it for evolve over time.
Tutte le cose per cui ti serve, per cui la puoi usare lungo il tempo.
And so they're able to manage digital assets as properties.
Puoi fare management di asset digitali, proprietà.
They're able to manage multiple currencies themselves.
Multiple criptovalute.
So as opposed to having to pay a developer to build you another token for a new project that you're going to work on.
Perciò invece di pagare un developer per costruirti una criptovaluta per un
An
altro
ERC
progetto,
1155 would simply be able to spontaneously create a new token base with the same contract. No changes, no additional development.
1155 ha già l'abilità di crearti una nuova criptovaluta senza programmare.
And the benefit of this is that it's all open sourced.
Ed è tutto open source.
So what you need to find then is basically new kinds of platforms that are using this technology natively.
Quello che voi dovete cercare sono diverse tipologie di piattaforme che usano questa tecnologia in modo nativo.
Now, if there are any builders in the room, I'm sure that's going to sound really exciting. And if you're not into code, kind of like what you saw earlier, you're going to be like, okay, well, what kind of platforms out there do this?
Ok, se ci sono dei sviluppatori nella camera, forse è molto interessante per voi.
And I think the reason being, the main reason why I think that this is so important is honestly at this last bullet point here.
Il motivo principale per cui penso che questo è molto importante è l'ultima idea qua.
We want new decentralized applications that shift the value from being a speculative asset to being something that manages data.
Abbiamo bisogno. Can you go again? Sorry.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're finding more applications out there, more decentralized applications in
Abbiamo
Web3
bisogno di trovare e creare applicazioni decentralizzate
that use this type of technology to shift the value from a speculative asset
che usa questo tipo di tecnologia per cambiare il valore da un asset speculativo
towards the data management.
verso il management dei dati.
And you'll notice on both sides, whether it's a speculative asset or data management, you're still talking about the monetization of those assets.
E per tutti e due i casi, sia che sia un asset speculativo o management dei dati, tutti e due devono essere monetizzati.
The difference being is that when you focus on an asset that uses the technology primarily,
La differenza è quando ti concentri su un asset che usa in primo piano la tecnologia,
you don't wind up with a token that crashes its value when the market gets shaky, like we see now.
sorry, go again.
You don't wind up with a token that crashes because it loses its value and nothing goes to zero.
Non ti attacchi a un token che se il market va giù, poi va col market giù.
So, for example, with my company, in terms of what we're using the ERC 1155 for, are items like this.
La mia società, la mia company, queste sono le tipologie di benefici per cui noi usiamo la tecnologia 1155.
So these are kind of benefits you can get out of an 1155. Chain of
Sono i
custody.
benefici che puoi tirar fuori da 1155.
So chain of custody, recordation.
Too technical for me.
These are technical terms.
Chain of custody,
Essentially the idea that you can pass on the record of ownership from one person to another.
l'idea di passare il record dell'appartenenza da una persona all'altra. Chain
Right?
of custody.
And
Okay.
how are we doing? We're doing on time, yeah?
Thank you, Arthur. We haven't got any
Yeah.
time. If you want to close your speech for
Yeah.
the end, you talk about something.
So I think I want to open it up. If anybody has some questions and just kind of
Qualcuno ha
talk
domande?
about this in simple terms.
Qualcuno ha domande?
Aspetta, le traduci prima, poi.
Yeah, this is it. Do you guys have any questions? Kind of want to talk about anything openly?
Ah, ok. Sì, se avete qualche domanda, allora non avevo capito io. Se avete qualche domanda da fare
Ok.
ad Arthur, passiamo il microfono magari.
Yeah, we can.
What are some concrete use cases that you have worked with this kind of token?
Yeah, so the question was some concrete use cases for this type of token, right? So let me give you an example. A muralist, like we're going to have during this conference for Crypto Expo Milan, right? A muralist paints a mural, they install it in a physical space, and typically they'll get funding from a place, install the mural, and then the mural stays, right? The conversation of whether it's owned by who owns the building or owned by the community then becomes a separate conversation, right? But it's not always the case that funding is there for the artist to paint the mural. So an 1155 would enable this artist to generate a token that represents the mural itself, that can also basically raise funds by people buying into the token, and then issue tokens for people who want to own portions of that mural as, let's say, a loyalty token or as a fan, right? Those tokens then are semi-fungible because they can also be used because of their timestamp. They can also be used because of their unique identifiers that relate to their wallets. So that means it has both fungibility in the fact that anyone could be issued a token from that same mural that helps to crowdfund it, but also has a unique asset then because each person that generates a token from that mural has a unique identifier, which means I'm not the same person that owns that mural as you. That's unique. So that solves two use cases at once while also enabling the artist to fund the asset at the same time. Yeah. Would you do that with real estate? Yes. I'm so serious, yeah. It works literally the same way, right? Like, I think what a lot of people get confused on are the idea that these things are themselves their own asset, which is true to a case, right? Like when you buy a website, like a .com, right? You have both the site that hosts the information, right? Like out here in the world, you have your actual house you could buy, the real estate, but then you also have the .com, where that website is parked. So you have a physical address where your house is parked, right? The address just points to the value, points to the asset. That's all an NFT is. So you can use that same thing for many, many use cases. Anything else?
Anything
maybe
else? Have we got
one more? Maybe we've got time for one more.
Yeah.
Okay, so real big question here, and I'm glad this was the last one of the day because it's fairly complex. The question was, can this type of token support bridging between blockchains? Now, what you've probably seen in terms of how crypto has developed over time is that we started with like Bitcoin, right? One big, like first ever cryptocurrency, right? And then we went towards tokens, and then we went towards multiple blockchains with multiple tokens. And bridges is where you're able to take value from one blockchain to another. This type of token is not currently suitable to be able to do that. And that's a real problem because that's something we're facing as an industry. But I think what we might see is in our next cycle, in the next 2 years, 4 years, we'll start to see that there are more technologies that support that bridge, and tokens like this with their versatility will be the first ones in line. So I hope you've enjoyed the show, and definitely stick around for the rest of the conference, and I'll be here for more questions. Thank you.
Ringraziamo intanto Athur Greyson, thank you so much for your speech.